Hello and welcome back to the Villa Filler podcast. It's the morning after the night before, and I'm here as always with my good friend Dan Wiseman. Dan, Aston Villa 1, Zrinjski Mostar 0. Last minute limbs, mate, in Europe. There's no better way to win, is there?
There's not. You know what, mate? Last night kind of made me think back to when we had the Palace game. It was Palace game where we won it really similarly, very late on. And we kind of came on here and both of us were a little bit, I don't want to say downbeat, but it was we were more, the discussion was based around the kind of 89 minutes rather than the 5 minutes that followed it. Do you know what I mean? And we came on here and there was a lot of comments sort of saying why are you guys kind of being a bit negative about this? Why do you feel that type of way? And I kind of sat there and I was like, no, you know what? Maybe you guys have got a point. Maybe you and I kind of, you're absolutely right. This is what it is all about. This is what it is all about because these are the moments, remember, these are the moments that ultimately what makes football fandom so magic is that you kind of get these moments late on. And so, yeah, I don't think that there was as much necessarily to be kind of concerned about as there was necessarily in the Palace game. You know, we obviously conceded in that game. We kept a clean sheet and were pretty good value for it, I thought, last night. But no, I think we have to be positive about this one. You have to be upbeat. This is a massive 3 points. And if we hadn't have got it, going into that Alkmaar game would have been really, really difficult. But I think given how the group looks, all the teams on 3 points, all of the teams on the same goal difference, it's like someone's hit reset on Group E.
It's mad, isn't it? I caught a few strays calling this group of death. It's still wide open. I mean, maybe it was slightly overstated, but anyone can go through in this group, and surely that is the bare minimum of a requirement for the group of death. You know, there can be upsets, and there was on match day one with both games, and I mean, it's so sweet last night, mate. It's so sweet because we just battered them, didn't we? We did absolutely batter them, and it was a bit slow and it was a bit laboured at times, but that's always going to happen when you rotate. And I think my biggest sort of not concern, but I said to you a few weeks ago, mate, I never want to see a double pivot of Dendoncker and Tielemans as a joke before we'd even seen it. And after seeing it now, for sure, I don't want to see that. We don't need to see that. I like them both individually. I mean, Tielemans quite clearly hasn't hit the heights and has been extremely frustrating, and is someone I've singled out a few times now as probably one of our weaker performers. You know, he really frustrated me the other week in that Crystal Palace game. And he did the same thing again with the crowd at the end, but I'll allow it because it was last minute limbs. But you can't play both of those guys together. You can play Leander or you can play Tielemans. You can't play them together. But that is obviously caveated with the fact that Boubacar Kamara was injured. We were looking to rest Dougie a little bit. But we looked like that first half, mate. Obviously, we had the share of possession. We had probably 3 or 4 really good opportunities as well in that first half, didn't we? Especially early on. It looked like we needed to go up 1 or 2 gears to really try and break these guys down, just because with Donk and with Tielemans, there's just no pace in that midfield. So it was essential really to bring Douglas Luiz on in this second half, wasn't it, mate, to really kick this game up at 1 or 2 tempos.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But we shouldn't have to do that. We shouldn't have to do that. And that's my kind of point, is that this game, I'm going to take John Duran out of this equation because I felt that it was maybe almost harsh to pull him, given that I don't think he'd had a necessarily great first half, but I certainly don't think he'd done much wrong. I just think he looked so isolated. He hadn't gotten much service, and to be honest, I think we've seen that John Duran can be kind of a real threat in this competition, and I felt that pulling him into that group of players that were yanked at half time was a little bit I very much felt that kind of he wasn't the problem, so to speak. And I think we kind of left guys like Yuri out there to kind of try and play them into form a little bit. You're kind of leaving Yuri out there and hope that he gets a goal or he gets an assist and he kind of sparks that for the career. And I think Duran is in that same bucket, really. I think you kind of, you're almost better. this guy needs minutes just as much as Ollie needs a rest. But yeah, we shouldn't have to bring these guys on. And as we kind of said in the Legia game, the guys that we put out in the first half should be more than capable of getting this job done. And I don't want to make this a blanket statement. I thought many of those guys that were included in the Legia game where we went and lost had a much better game tonight. I thought Clement Longley had a much better game. I thought he was really good. And Tielemans was really bizarre because for every fantastic part, like he played some wonderful like diagonal balls, and there were some really nice crosses and little reverse passes where you kind of think, oh, okay, there it is. And then they were more often not kind of followed by a pass that went astray or was wayward or like quite a simple. There was that one corner where we had almost everybody in the 6-yard box and we pulled Yuri short. Do you remember? And he Bailey tried to play it in, and Yuri had to play. It was a back heel, but for a player of his quality, like bread and butter stuff, and it kind of hit his other foot, and we lost the ball, and like it was we were chasing the game. We just like thrown one of our 15 corners away, and you just kind of think like, it's a bit of a conundrum at this point, and Villa fans kind of need to stick behind him, but. Yeah, my main point is that we shouldn't have had to bring those guys on at half time, but they did just make such a difference.
They did. And like the team that started is, aside from, my concerns with that midfield pairing, was great. I saw a lot of people complaining about Leon. I thought he was brilliant, frustrating when he beats a man and tries to beat him again. But there were probably 3 or 4 instances where he was able to wriggle his way past 3 or 4 players, and I get where the frustrations come from there, because you've done so much and then you've either, the shot doesn't happen or you misplace a pass or a cross. But I thought Leon's general play was really good, and I thought he was really important. There was quite a few people around me. We claimed our normal seat, but I think a lot of the people who sort of sit around us went and sat other places because there are a lot of faces and voices that I didn't recognise. So many people were giving Bailey shit. And I mean, that's pretty standard, to be fair, like where we sit. But I just thought, I thought he was decent, and especially in that second half, and we played him on the left, which is you get a way better output from Leon Bailey playing on the left than on the right. I don't know why we constantly play him on that right hand side. It doesn't make any sense to me. He's left-footed. He can get to the byline, put a cross in on the left without having to come inside. There isn't that need to come in. My one. Not complaint, but observation about the lineup though is obviously playing Ezri at right back, and then we had the first half it was Dean and McGinn on that left hand side, weren't it? Obviously the left is where our main attacking outlay is. Every time we try to spread that play to the right over to Leon, they played 4-5-1, didn't they? They were absolutely they covered off so much of that space in their final third. You needed extra runners, and obviously Ezri isn't that guy to be, creating overloads like Kashi would if he was playing at right back. So tactically, I think with the personnel that we played, we did struggle a little bit. And then that problem then flipped to the other side of the field when Kashi was on, and we take Dean off and you put Longley in at left back. So it was kind of like, I understand why we did it, but obviously you can't really have centre halves who are masking as fullbacks getting to the byline to put crosses in, because that's just not going to work. That's not efficient. But that's not to say that Longley and Konsa were, poor at distribution whatsoever. They were both absolutely phenomenal, I thought. Ezri Konsa, 94% pass accuracy throughout this game. Clement Longley, SoScore giving him an 8.0 rating with a 96% pass accuracy rate throughout that game. I thought he's phenomenal. And, I want to give him that shout out, because so many of the guys, I feel like the names are sort of dragged through the mud after that Legia game, mate. As you rightly said, Longley was really good. Bailey, I thought, was good. Zaniolo, I think, still learning, still adapting. He's still trying to do a little bit too much, but I thought in general he was quite good. And it looked like Zaniolo was being a bit of a shithouse with these guys. I think they must have understood the Italian, because Nicola was getting right in it, weren't he, mate? Being a little bastard, but I like that. But yeah, I just sometimes games go like this though, don't they, mate? We know that, again, to reference the people around me, there's people behind me complaining, we battered Brighton at the weekend, why can't we beat Mostar? Yeah, well, if Brighton came with two banks of four to defend for 90 minutes, they would have probably ended up beating us 2-0. We play so much better when teams come onto us because we know how to exploit the space. We're so good in transition. If you give us the ball and tell us to break a team down, more often than not, we are going to struggle, especially when you bench Ollie, when you bench Dougie, when you're missing Booba, when you're missing Diaby. That's just the reality of how we play football. If Zrinjski came and went all out attack, they play 4-3-3, this game would have been done in the first half, mate, even with that team that we put out.
No, you're absolutely right, and it kind of that's going to have to be a big part of Unai's work on the training ground going forward is how to break down these low blocks, because this won't be, this isn't the first and this won't be the last game at Villa Park in the Premier League, in the FA Cup, in the Conference League, in the Carabao, whatever competition. This won't be the first time that we have to do this season, and we have to find ways to do that, because you're absolutely right. Unai's tactical style is about bringing it slowly out the back and baiting that press, and then finding those quick moments to kind of execute play through it, get guys in behind on the shoulder. And suddenly, you kind of seeing how important guys like Diaby are to our system on a Saturday when you kind of take them out. And I think this kind of references as well the point you were making about our fullbacks. Those players that were so integral on the weekend were really suffering from injuries, because Alex Moreno and Luca Dean would be fabulous at rotating, but when you take these guys out that we don't have, not necessarily a carbon copy of, but someone that can even loosely kind of mimic their style, suddenly this Villa team just looks so different. And I think that kind of explains the Everton game last week and maybe the Leeds game. I don't want to. The Leeds game, I'm almost kind of thinking as a bit of a one-off in a way, because I think Leeds did come onto us and they caused us problems in doing that. And I think the Leeds didn't sit behind the ball for 90 minutes, it didn't feel, and then run up the other end and score 3 lucky goals. Like, they were very good value for that victory, and it was quite an attacking performance from them, really. But I think this is mostly an injury issue, but there are certainly some gaps in this squad in that, we're not bringing guys in that are like-for-like replacements. Like, we're bringing in Dendoncker and Tielemans, who offer something completely different to Luiz and Kamara, and it's, Ezri Konsa playing right back, who's completely different to Matty Cash, and this kind of goes right throughout the team. And so I think it kind of points to that, but we need to find a way to get these guys able to win games by themselves, because it was amazing and they were fantastic when it came on, but we don't need to be bringing on Ollie and Douglas and all of these guys at halftime to come on and save the game. We need to be able to trust these guys to go on and win games, because they're more than capable of it. They absolutely are. But I think that's probably what you can pin the there's certainly the Everton defeat and maybe this game, is that, like, when we've had those rotations, it's very difficult to kind of play the way that we do on the weekend.
Yeah, no, you're spot on, mate. And like, when you talk about using the squad as well, we have to give a shout out to your boy Bertrand Traore, mate. I thought he provided that right hand side was so much more balanced with him and Kashi. Again, to reference my point about having overlapping fullbacks and that, we know Bertie wants to come inside. The problem was, generally throughout a lot of this game, we were playing too narrow as a result of those fullbacks. It's okay for Bertie to go inside when he's got Kashi on the overlap, and that's exactly how the goal's made then, isn't it, mate? I mean, who better than John McGinn to score that goal, to clutch up late on? You kind of have to pinch yourself, really, don't you? You take yourself back, 2018? That's like 5 years ago, £2.5 million from his first game in the Championship. I think it may have been Preston at home, someone like that, some northern team. Whips in a free kick. James Chester scores, and I remember seeing him and thinking, yeah, we've got a player here. This guy's a little bit different. He's got something about him, and now he's the captain of the club. But in European football, the journey he's been on with us, it felt like poetry in motion when he put that glancing header in the 94th minute. It was just, you couldn't have asked for a better way to win the game, could you?
No, absolutely not. There's a wonderful quote from him that you might have even seen it yourself, or people listening might have seen it, from John Townley, who's been covering the Villa really, really well this season for Birmingham Live. He's on the Claret and Blue pod and stuff like that. And he's got a quote from McGinn, and it's just amazing. It's like, I'm living the dream. A few years ago, I got relegated from the Scottish Premier League. So if you ask me, I'm going to play every week in the Premier League and in Europe. It doesn't matter how tired your legs are. You keep going and living the dream.
It's amazing, mate.
Beautiful.
There's not many players like him, though, are there? Like, you genuinely could play him every week, 90 plus minutes, and you know you're good value for, you know what you're getting from John McGinn. And, you know, he's obviously endeared himself so well. The journey we've been on with Guinea has just been amazing. And I mean, it felt biblical, mate. It felt like, because, you know, the 85 minutes prior, well, I kind of felt like we would eventually score just due to the sheer volume of chances that we created, mate. 27 shots we had, with 9 being on target, 10 of which were blocked as well. It felt like we couldn't not score. But when you get to 85 minutes, you're thinking, we're getting grouped here. We're getting grouped. We have to win every game. We have to top the group. Even if by some miracle we lost and managed to qualify second potentially, you're then facing someone from the Europa League. That's not an ideal situation. But as you pointed out at the top, mate, it's level playing fields in this group. It give us a good foundation now to hopefully, you know, with I know we've got Alkmaar in like 2 weeks. Hopefully we've got a few players back for that. And it just puts us in a bit of a better position to really give this group, like, unleash hell on these guys, because that's what we need to do.
Yeah, so that's kind of what you hope that this last minute winner is. It's where we finally kickstart our form in this competition. And I saw a lot of kind of dialogue, excuse me, online about that yesterday, and that, like, maybe this is it. This is the moment. It's our captain saving us in the 95th minute scenes at Villa Park. Like, we have to use that as the springboard. And, you know, we kind of both said after the, you know, kind of in the weeks following the Legia game, that we hoped that, if you're going to spin it positively, that it was a bit of a wake-up call, that, okay, it's like, you can't go into any game underestimating your opponents. And we kind of said that in the preview as well. And we just had 2 games here that just goes to show that, like, you can't let your foot up in this competition. Like, what the talent and the teams that are out there on the continent are so perennially underrated by the top 5 leagues. And there's always shocks in this competition. There is always shocks. And to anybody, like, we were made the bookmakers' favourites to go and win this competition, but we've had 180 minutes in it now that just shows that, like, if we are going to get not even like our hands on the trophy, just anywhere close to Athens, we have to be so on it on a Thursday night, because these teams, they come and they're so more tactically, like, well drilled than you give them credit for. Like, the talent and the kind of the players that you see, like, particularly kind of in that back line, like, I forget the names of their players, but the goalkeeper Maric was, like, fantastic. Jakovlevic, their centre half, he was brilliant as well. And there's so many good, like, guys that had, like, really, really strong performances out there. And, like, this was the game that people would have looked at on paper, myself included, and gone, yeah, that's where the 3 points needs to come from. But it just goes to show that, like, no matter who you've got, you really, really can't take it lightly. And we've got to go and play these guys away. And that's going to be a really, really tough game. Like, from here, Alkmaar away is on paper our toughest game of the group stage. And then, you know, Legia at home is a side that we've already lost to. And so we've seen what they can do. And then we have to go and play these guys away again. And so, like, we've got 3 games left of the group stage, but they're really, really tough tasks. And we're going to have to be so on it to get through this group. But this moment has to be the catalyst for us to go and do that.
No, it does, mate. Absolutely. Preach it. And talk about not underestimating opposition. Wolverhampton Wanderers, mate. It's been a bit of a ride, isn't it, for them? I mean, I'm looking at the form now, and I don't think it's it's not a fair reflection of how good they've probably been since probably match day 3, match day 4. Obviously, in their last game, they go and do a job on Man City at home, but then the game before that, they lose away to Ipswich in the Carabao Cup, which, if anybody's watched the Championship, then that's not necessarily the worst thing in the world because Ipswich have been absolutely tearing it up. But, then before that, drawing away to Luton, that's not ideal. And then the Liverpool game, they lost that 3-1, but I thought they were really good value for that one, to be fair, in that early kickoff. They probably deserved more than they got from that, especially in that first half. But form goes out the window, mate. I was listening to WM on the way home last night, and they were going, Villa fans think they think Wolves is a bogey team, it's this, it's that. Wolves have won 5 in the last 10 against us. We've won 3, we've drawn 2. Molineux's always a tough place to go, but all of that goes out of the window, mate, because this is somewhat of a rivalry. And, I mean, it doesn't help the fact that we're coming into this 3 days after this European game. Thankfully, we're not having to travel too far, and we didn't have to travel anywhere last night. But this is going to be really tough, and I'm looking at someone like Pedro Neto, who's taken all the headlines recently, been in the goals, absolutely carrying Wolves. I saw we were even linked with him the other day, as well as Arsenal. And this feels like a big banana skin yet again, doesn't it, mate? Because we've got a nice run of games in the league after the international break. And, I mean, it'd be nice just to round off this little mini period between international breaks with another win, wouldn't it?
Yeah, for sure. But you're absolutely right. It will be a tough one, mate. It feels like this always happens. Like whenever Villa are playing a team that's in the bottom half of the table, close to the relegation zone, that they either sack their manager or beat a big team right before they play us. I don't know if it's just me, but it feels like this happens all the time. Like we're always the team that gets to face this team with like a new manager bounce. But yeah, like I kind of did some digging, and Wolves' form, particularly at home, wasn't actually as bad as I'd perhaps thought. I think Gary Neal's done a pretty good job, particularly at Molineux. They've won 5 of their last 8 home games in the Premier League, drawing 1, losing just 2, which was as many as they'd had in their previous 17 before that under a kind of variety of different managers. So Molineux, he's made a tough place to go. Obviously, they get that amazing win against Manchester City, but we generally don't travel very well there. Anyway, Wolves have beaten us 3 out of the last 4 times. We've been to Molineux, drawing 1, so we haven't beat them kind of away in our last 4 visits there, which is as many as they'd had in their first 12 games against them before that. So we don't travel well there. I'm not sure what it I think we've seen Villa sides kind of in years gone by that have been plagued by kind of mental fragility at Wolves. I think we've not gone there, and it's just been that we can't match them for talent or anything like that. But kind of every time, it's just always felt that they wanted it a little bit more. That they've just been a little bit hungrier, that the fans have been great and they've really got behind the teams, and we've just kind of sunk a little bit in that atmosphere. Obviously, Matt Targetgate is the prime incident that kind of springs to mind when we think about this, and whether he did or did not come off when maybe he didn't need to for fear of a tough afternoon against Adama Traore at the time. But this Villa team is a little bit different in that regard, and this is where you hope that we can maybe turn those tables, because as we've just seen, this is a Villa side that are a little bit tougher mentally, and I thought physically tougher as well. That, you know, that's probably the reason, if I had to attribute the massive win against Brighton to one thing, it's just that, like, physically we seem so much like better and hungrier than them, and in those 50-50s and in those duels we always come out on top. And I think if we're going to transfer one thing from that Brighton win into this game, it has to be that, because if you don't match these guys and you allow the crowd to get up and they're winning the 50-50s and the ball is just running downhill, we can expect to see another kind of bad statistic pop up the next time we play them. But this Villa team is a little bit different, I think, in that regard.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the thing is, like, we're going to have issues here. Again, they're playing a back three. It's going to be a low block. They're going to look to break us. We're going to have to be very patient. And I mean, you know what you're getting from Gary O'Neill's side. They're going to be well drilled. They're going to play direct. They're going to be quick in transition. And they're probably only going to have 4 or 5 chances, but they'll probably score 1 or 2. That's just how it goes. And they did a really good job at frustrating City, because, again, you know, they just defended their box so deep. And, you know, when you do that, you can kind of mark someone like Erling Haaland out of the game. There's no space at the back post for him to sort of latch onto. And as we saw in that game, it was a bit of a sort of welcome to the league, but this may be tougher than you imagine for someone like Doku as well, who I think has been absolutely brilliant. And obviously there was the story arc there of Mateus Nunes returning after sort of demanding he left and all that, which obviously would have got the fans well up for it as well. And we know, as you said, mate, they're gonna be well up for this one. I feel like this one means more to them than it does us. It's still a rivalry in that, but I think they just absolutely love playing the Villa. So this is going to be a difficult one, mate. Especially, I mean, I'm sure you've seen the international squad announcements. Boubacar Kamara's going with France. Why is he going with France if he can't play last night and potentially can't play today? I feel like France intentionally blue ball Kamara so much. They called him up late due to an injury with Kante, I think it was, on his honeymoon. So his wife would have been absolutely livid that he's gone, and then he didn't play. And he's constantly just on the bench, and I don't understand it because he's phenomenal. He should be playing. If he's not going to play, don't take him. That should be simple. And obviously the fact that there's no Diaby included in that squad either, considering how electric he's been, makes you wonder how serious the injury potentially is.
Yep, no, it's very true, mate. He's frustrating when this happens, and we do it ourselves at the Gareth Southgate does it a lot, doesn't he? I mean, Fikayo Tomori must be more seriously fed up that every month he has to board a flight from Milan to London just to go and sit on the bed and never play. And so I imagine that there's probably a little kind of support group that these players can set up. There's a decent contingency across Europe where they can all sit together and have a good moan about the fact that they always have to travel for these international fixtures and then never bloody play, considering that, Booba's coming off an injury, it seems. And so, injury-wise, it's not looking great. Looks like rumours are being confirmed that JJ's done his metatarsal again, which is a real shame. And so looks like we could be set for another spell without him, which is just crushing considering the moment that he had against Brighton. It'd be interesting to see whether we get guys like Booba back. And again, Diaby as well is another interesting one, as you rightly mentioned. And then Moreno kind of feels like he's had another setback as well, because it felt like he was in and around. We were starting to see more of him on the socials and stuff like that. Felt like he was getting closer a couple of weeks ago, and now seems to have dropped back a little bit in his recovery. So the injury update from Unai will be really, really interesting. It's quite hard to call the lineup for this one, but kind of as we were saying, mate, if we are going to go and get a result here, we probably need as many of these guys fit, because rotations just aren't really working for us at the moment.
No, they're not, mate. And with all that being said, mate, let's get a score prediction before we round up.
Oh, that's so hard. This game is impossible to call. Let's say 2-1 Villa.
2-1. Do you know what? I like that. I'm going to go 1-1. I think my head's saying 1-1. I think we get a goal. I think we concede a goal. But I'd definitely take a 2-1 win, mate. Don't get me wrong. As well, before I forgot to mention this earlier on. Walking out of Villa Park last night, right? These two fellas walked by, and one of them points at me and just shouts Zaniolo. And I mean, I'm flattered because he's one handsome bastard. And I don't understand why or where that came from. The only thing I could assume, my hair was just an absolute state. And that was maybe the closest thing that resembled Nicolo Zaniolo. So thank you, I guess, to that random passerby. Maybe
love that.
I'm a slightly out of shape cousin of Nicolo Zaniolo. But guys,
I love that.
We get lookalikes quite a bit. This is a thing that's been a part of the channel for a while, guys. So if anybody's new here, get in the comments. Let us know who our lookalikes are. They don't have to be Villa players, and you don't have to say I look like Zaniolo either. But let us know, because this has been like a sort of long-standing thing on the channel. So let us know if you've made it this far, who our lookalikes are, and
fun.
Yeah, why not? Why not? And let us know your score predictions in the comment section down below, guys. If you enjoyed and you're listening on Apple and Spotify, make sure you leave a 5-star review, follow the podcast, share it with your friends, download it. It all helps us more than you guys could imagine. And if you're on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, and up the Villa.